Hello, welcome to the Near Future podcast. I'm Tom, this is Jonny, and we're going to give you a quick update on how we're thinking about what we're building, where we're exploring in AI and design right now. So I thought we could start out by talking a bit about a workshop that we ran on Friday evening, Friday night, the prime time for design workshops, at an event called Product Unleashed in London, where we built a design tool in 15 minutes, twice. So it was a fun event. There were a bunch of great talks that happened. There are four talks about designers exploring AI, and then we were the desserts. We were the bit afterwards in a separate room in the top of this building where we ran a workshop on building your own design tool twice, as I mentioned. So, Jonny, I thought we could talk a little bit about how we went about that, any high level takeaways or themes from the event, and perhaps give a bit of a behind the scenes look at building out that workshop. So, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, it was a interesting challenge that I think we set for ourselves, really. No one asked us to try and build a design tool in 15 minutes. We decided to do that and then went through a process where we realized that it was going to be slightly more complicated or at least less predictable than we thought it was. In fact, I think I probably should blame myself. I think I responded to the email with like, I think we should just build a design tool. And then as we actually started to run tests of what you could build in 15 minutes, I think we probably realized at that point that while it is possible, absolutely possible to build a design tool in 15 minutes, quite a lot of that time is just watching Claude or your LLM think and then write code. And it's not very interesting. And we actually ran a straw poll during the workshop of who was familiar with these tools, and pretty much everyone was using Claude in Terminal. So I think it wouldn't have even been interesting to people who hadn't seen it before. There weren't that many people that hadn't seen it before. So uh, we sort of guessed that, and quite quickly realized that not only were we going to need to build a design tool, we were actually still also going to have to to think about a narrative and a presentation and all of the talk aspects. This wasn't us getting out of doing a talk. This was just us adding an extra thing on top of doing a talk, and also working out how to do it together in 15 minutes, which I think we're pretty good at now. We're a fairly good double act. We know when to sort of hand it over to the other person or to butt in, but all quite complex. So um, I think the first ideas we had were sort of slightly more serious design tools, or actually creating an artifact on the screen like a button or a bouncing ball or something. We've run these things before and it works quite nicely. And then you go on and you prompt the sidebar or the controls to be able to manipulate whatever it is that you have on screen. And quite quickly, I think we tried that and just sort of felt like the temptation was going to be to directly manipulate the object rather than build the tool around it. Or at least that's what my fear was. And so switch to no, let's just build an actual tool. The problem is a lot of design tools are quite complicated, and it maybe would have been a little bit dry to watch someone try and perfect the easing curves on a button hover state for 15 minutes. That's not, we're eating pizza. It's sort of 8:30 p.m. We've had one or two alcoholic drinks. This is not the kind of content that people are going to be asking for. So we pivoted again to building retro tools that we thought, at least, even if it doesn't work, we should get a laugh. So we ended up with three options. Etch a Sketch was one, and that was chosen. The audience chose which tools we would ultimately build. So Etch a Sketch, Word Art, and the third was Paint, MS Paint. And I think that worked really well, actually. And what's amazing about it, and the sort of mind-blowing thing about these coding models and their training data and all of the stuff they already know about the world without you having to tell them, is all you had to do to build a fairly complete version of one of these tools, whether it's an Etch a Sketch or a MS Paint, is write, build MS Paint. And actually, within about a minute, it's there. So the 15 minutes was never at risk in terms of actually getting a sort of basic version of a thing that looked recognizable and people could see and understand what it was. I think the harder thing ended up being, what do we then do next, and how do we get people to get excited about wacky ideas and feature requests, and then how do we actually fill the time where people aren't doing that with a bit of why, a bit of a narrative. So it probably ended up taking us maybe a bit longer than we would have hoped to get it to the point where it works. But I think then it worked. So I think it was entertaining and sort of funny, and hopefully we landed a little bit of a serious point in it as well. But yeah, Tom, what did you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really fun. Definitely agree with you that we on paper it looked like we're just going to have a terminal open and run through this thing. We don't really need to prepare very much, but in the end, it's like that plus a slide deck plus how do we hand off between each other. Um, I thought it went really well. And if you weren't there, if you didn't see that, then the Etch a sketch we created the first time round was this trippy rainbow colored animating Etch a sketch experience that was kind of quite wacky, quite bizarre. Worked very well on the mobile though, and there was this neat moment at the end of the workshop where we uploaded it to Ooda, which is a tool that you've built, Jonny, and that got it online very smoothly. Showed up a QR code for the audience to scan with their phone, and then they could play with it on their phones. So yeah, I was quite impressed with how the technical details held up under that kind of environment. Um, and the narrative was fun as well. Like it was more, as we said, more work than we anticipated, but it was fun to dig into some of the narrative in a bit more detail. That allowed us to explore a bit more of the history of toolmaking and design, which I'll speak to in a moment. But yeah, I wonder if you might actually want to speak to some of the slides that you shared at the start, which were about giving some context into why this matters. Because I think if you just look on the surface at building an Etch a sketch in a group in 15 minutes, it was a fun exercise, but maybe not super relevant for designers practicing day to day and what they might want to do. But I think there is a real depth to why this matters. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on that, Jonny.
Yeah. So this isn't the first time we've sort of told this story, and I think that this topic is something that I keep coming back to myself in terms of how I think about how this technology is going to impact us. And I know in the last episode we talked about there's three different ways in which broad buckets in which a designer might be able to utilize AI in their day to day. One is to write production code. One is to build prototypes and non-production code, but enable their design work to be brought to life in some better way. And then the third is to build tools to better allow them to design whatever it is they're designing, whether that's in code or not. And I think that tooling one is basically the story that I think that I wanted to tell at the start of this workshop. I'll see if I can get the slides up, actually. Oh yeah, here we go. So I just
If you're watching this on YouTube, you actually have something to look at other than our faces. But if
yeah,
you're listening to
it's
this
wild.
only, we will try and narrate these so that they make sense without needing to look at a screen.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, so the first, I mean, the first slide is just a picture of a man that is actually Johannes Gutenberg, and I think Gutenberg is probably a bit of a cliche to bring up as part of a narrative around technology inducing enormous societal change, but I did it anyway, YOLO. And I think that broadly we're in like this Gutenberg moment now, or this post Gutenberg moment. AI is the great enabler. There are second, third, fourth order consequences of this technology that we're yet to see, and things that were held in very few people's hands before the printing press appeared suddenly were more broadly available, and books got probably not cheap immediately, but became much more accessible, and therefore knowledge was disseminated, etc., etc. We're now in that situation where we're no longer beholden to two or three companies that are very large and very far away, with very with roadmaps that you can't easily manipulate yourself for your own ends. And we're now actually able to choose from tools that already exist. I think, yeah, there's now, I think, nearly 100 tools on this website, designtools.fyi, that I have on a slide if you're listening. And so there's lots of paid options still built by startups and individuals. But actually, even more than that, we're now able to build our own. So that was like the sort of narrative that I wanted to go with. And I don't know, like I had about 3 minutes to explain it, as with this whole thing, is 15 minutes is nowhere near long enough, but maybe someone got it. I think there were a lot of nods on the slide, on the Adobe and Figma slide. Lots of people agreeing hard with that at the very least. So hopefully something happened. And then I got to use my my hardcore meme skills. I got to be a meme lord with this is one of my favorite images to meme on, which is a man pouring a lot of olive oil on a salad. And the man is us, and the olive oil is features, and the salad is this tool. So if you're not looking at it, it's not, it might not make much sense, but we kept asking for more features throughout this process. So there's occasional slides with requests to the audience for more features. Anyway, yeah.
Great. Yes. And there were some good feature requests. So I was impressed that the audience were pretty engaged with suggesting ideas. I think the second time round, we get the horse button in?
Yeah.
Maybe. Um, yeah, lots of rainbows and animation, and yeah, it was very fun.
So Tom, as part of this presentation, we also threw in some historical examples. And while I have the slideshow up, we could dig into them if you're up for it.
Sure.
I thought
Sure.
it was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. So I think the reason we wanted to add a bit of history and a bit of context here is that all of this tool making seems to be exploding on the internet right now. Everyone's designing their own tool for their own process, which is really exciting to see. But it feels like maybe this is a new phenomenon, but actually there's a long history of people designing their own tools and designers designing their own tools. So a few historical examples we spoke about in the narrative. One is the classic example of Steve Jobs and Apple, where Chris Espinosa, early employee of Apple, got fed up of being micromanaged by Steve Jobs's attention to detail and creative vision, and built him the calculator construction set, which allowed Steve to edit and manipulate every minute detail of the calculator UI to get it just right for to perfect that experience. So that's one good example, the classic example, perhaps. We also talked about another couple, though. The second one was around this idea of automatic double tracking, which was invented by or inspired by John Lennon of the Beatles, double tracking his vocal, which has this amazing audio quality to it. But John wasn't a big fan of needing to manually do two takes of all the songs they were recording. So the audio engineer there, Ken Townsend, decided to invent this way of automatically double tracking vocals, or John's vocals, which allowed them to keep this sound based signature move that they had. You'll hear it a lot in Revolver if you listen to that album. But it allowed them to do it much more efficiently and easily, and sort of gave them that creative power, but without needing John to go through this gauntlet of painful extra work that he didn't need to do. So a cool example there. The final example we spoke to the crowd about was in even before this, in the 1940s and 50s, Charles and Ray Eames invented the Kazam machine, which allowed them to bend plywood into these new shapes so that furniture could be built with these new forms that didn't really exist until this time. So it wasn't that it wasn't available to them, it wasn't available to anyone to bend materials into these shapes before the Kazam machine. So I think this is just a really cool example of how the idea for a vision, or the vision for a product in someone's head, isn't even possible to make with the tools available today. You need to first build the tools in order to unlock what those tools are capable of producing. So I
Mhm.
think this sort of second order effect of how to think about designing products in this sequence is really exciting. So those are the three we spoke to the crowd about. Jonny, did you have any extras that you wanted to mention that were left on the cutting room floor, or any other ideas for historical references for designers or creative people building their own tools?
Yeah, I mean, this sort of symbiotic relationship between a person and their tool. I love the Eames one because they created the thing that then allowed them to invent their iconic chair, amongst other things. And as far as I understand, that the jig that they use for the Eames chair today is still the same one, the same mold as they created back in the day. There's lots of fake Eames chairs. You can buy uh, replica ones and for considerably cheaper. But if you want a chair that was made in the same mold that they were using in the 50s, then you really can get that. That's a new Eames chair still uses that same simple tool. It's a shape basically. That's all it is. But that shape is iconic and has lasted for decades and uh, has led to this extraordinary sort of legacy of design. So I don't know. It's about. I love this one. I think that the Kazan machine and then that methodology that then led them to create all of this wonderful furniture is just extremely romantic to me. And wow, just imagine if any of us get to create something that lives as long and large as this has done. I don't know. I sort of feel like we work in pixels and on the internet, and it's all a little bit more ephemeral than this. And maybe all digital product designers just really want to design chairs and lamps and things because it'll still be around in hundreds of years. But oh well, we're doing this. Our websites may get taken down one day, but in the meantime, yeah, this was my favorite one. I don't have anything else. I just like this one.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good comparison with the ephemeral versus the sort of physical world. And yeah, I do think there's something that is maybe a little bit more unique to this moment is the instant and temporary nature of these tools. Like they
Mm,
don't. I love this example as well with Charles and Ray Eames, but it is something that has lasted an incredibly long time, and it is its own mini form of manufacturing almost. Whereas the
yeah,
idea that you can prompt a tool in 15 minutes that can directly help you shape not only the output of your work, but the way you think about what your work is capable of through this new tool that exists, I think is
yeah,
um, really interesting. I think there's something that's powerful about that temporary and very hyper personalized, hyper specific use case that
yeah.
I don't know, it could unlock some really interesting things.
Yeah, I think like this being a jig or like a mold, I think you would think of something like that as being really temporary. To go back to furniture making or carpentry or something, like I would make something in order to put a hole in exactly the right place in all four corners of a bit of wood, and then I'll throw it away, and I never need that anymore. And I think that that's a much closer parallel to a lot of what you see, like prototypes and these sort of one-off tools and nail an interaction and then never look at the tool again. Um, and I do think that there is this debate at the moment about whether anything that is so easily and cheaply made can ever be really valuable. Um, is there does there need to be pain and toil and iteration and failure and all of the other things that probably led to something like this and that led to all iconic pieces of design? Do you need that in order to create something iconic, or can something be created quickly that becomes iconic? I think if you read, there's this guy Kari Saarinen, who founder of Linear, um, and he's like having a very interesting nuanced take on all of this because he's very pro AI and they build a lot of AI stuff into Linear and things. But as a designer, he's very skeptical of shortcuts around the design process. He thinks design should be the work is the thinking, and there's no shortcut to the thinking, etc., etc. I'm increasingly subscribing to that. I think I went through this like hype cycle of like we're all doomed a little bit, because I couldn't see where the technology would stop being good. And now I think like a lot of people at the moment, I'm starting to be like, oh well, it's good at these few things, but what I really value is something that was created by a person and really thought through, and you can feel the difference. I really think you can feel the difference still. And maybe there'll be a point in time where we hit some singularity, but until then, yeah, like stuff like this, I'm not convinced that with all of the design skills, as in AI agent skills and amazing models, etc., I'm not sure that the value of design will lessen. The value of something that has been crafted will lessen, which sort of speaks to our mission, I think, as a business. Like we care about teams that care about craft, and so then our position on AI is necessarily more nuanced and not just throw agents at it and throw skills at it and then it's good enough. Like, no, how do you maintain that bar and still build things of value? And given you still have the same amount of time and time is necessary, where do you put that time and things like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Yeah.
don't know. That was a real tangent,
Oh,
but yeah,
craft
this.
tangent. Yeah, but I like the tangent though. I think, and I think to your example there, it's everything you described there isn't necessarily a new thing that is now possible because of AI. AI has just
Mm,
opened up new leverage, new ways of amplifying human craft. Um, I mean, I think there's maybe a separate conversation about when the products that are being built are to be consumed by agents. Maybe that changes the form factor of
mm,
them and the how you do how you define good design when the audience is not human.
yeah,
But assuming the audience is human, I am inclined to agree. The sort of authentic human judgment and editorial taste is increasingly important. And I've
yeah.
actually sort of an adjacent tangent to that is I've been thinking more recently about uh, personality traits rather than AI being universally good or bad at something. So
Mm,
what I mean by that is using in the pursuit of better craft and using AI to achieve better craft. There's often a narrative about AI being an amplifier. So it might amplify your range of creative thinking or getting to a prototype faster to generate an idea for the thing you want to build. And maybe those are two examples that are fairly universally applicable. But I think
yeah,
there's some interesting things around whether AI plays the role of the amplifier or AI plays the role of more of a counterbalance to someone's default instinct. And if you're a craft person who is perhaps a perfectionist who doesn't want to ship things and you just want to focus on like crafting the details, maybe there are ways that AI could be used to counterbalance that instinct and actually get you to like share things more like earlier or
mm,
reassure you that actually sharing this openly with a certain audience is going to be a positive thing to get feedback on your idea and get it improve it in the long term. Whereas if you're a craftsperson who is maybe less obsessed with details and hungry to get something out quicker, you might need AI to counterbalance you in the other way. So I think there's, I don't know, potentially a theme around someone's unique profile of how they think, how they make, using AI to not just universally amplify all the things, but really target where it can amplify based on your profile as a person. And so this is spoken of someone who overthinks things. And Jonny, you and I have talked before about maybe my bar for getting something out is high, higher than it should be sometimes. And so I've been increasingly trying to use AI to like, how do I lower it a little bit to like
mm,
get an idea out there or like just get me over the line of publishing something or putting out an idea or building a thing
yeah,
um, uh, with the view toward the longer term goal of that being to help inform and iterate on the thing, whatever artifact it is, to get it ultimately to a better place. But I think that really requires you to know yourself and know how you operate to be able to intentionally get AI to nudge you in the direction that is taking you on the right path. Because I think there's definitely a trap to fall into where you're a narcissist and you want AI to just tell you you're great all the time. And I don't, I
Yeah.
don't think that ends up in a positive loop. But if you're very self-critical and AI is a sycophant, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a bit more balance there. Maybe it's not a
Yeah.
universally bad thing.
Yeah. Really interesting. I mean, I do think probably a slightly different use case, but I've found AI most useful in shoring up weaknesses of mine. I think whether that's literally a technical weakness, like I've built things that I could never build because my coding ability is okay, but not great, and definitely things like infrastructure and how to think through that is would be challenging without AI. There's definitely a gap for me there, but also I'm a activator personality type that builds things and then generally struggles to stay excited about them over the medium to long term. So having building routines that involve agents that do things and then surface them to me in ways that make me think, oh, actually, I'm kind of interested in that. So I respond pretty well to finding out a bit of information that I want to read more about. Whereas a blank sheet of paper or just like a to do, I struggle with. So how do I build sort of agent infrastructure to pique my curiosity unpredictably every day so that it feels like something new, even if it's the same old boring thing? But to your point, I think you're in the right spot to leverage AI because I think AI is way better at encouraging speed than it is at encouraging slowness. Um, I think for people that, and I'm slightly more in this direction, for people that are naturally inclined to just YOLO stuff out, unless you very intentionally build ways for AI to review and stop what you're doing, and I don't know, like slow you down. It's just not its will. It's not what it wants. It wants to move fast. It wants to overproduce and get things done incredibly quickly. So working out how you would actually use it to help you deliberate and question your decisions and sort of stop you from shipping the thing you want to ship. For me, anyway, I don't know. I think it's slightly less good at that, basically, at the moment. That's not to say it won't ever be, and it's not to say it can't be if you work out how to make it work. But um, I actually think humans are uniquely good at that, or more good at that than AI today.
Uh, I agree with you. I also think that's kind of fascinating because went through this process of trying to create a Claude skill, or I think it was a Claude skill, to help me write more publicly. But the
Mm,
way I originally wrote it was, or prompted it, was with slowness in mind. um, Not, it wasn't framed as slowness. It was framed more around rigor. Like
mm,
less about posting publicly and more about sharpening my own thinking to the point that
mm,
I would reach this stage where I had this well formed, well opinionated, well defended idea of something that I could then share. Because then it
mm,
wasn't really sharing anything. Like I felt very bought into every aspect of sharing it. Um, but basically, the focus was on interrogating the idea rather than just getting something live. And I think that might work if I was writing I don't know, a book that was going to print and needed much more rigor around it. But I, as we just discussed, have the opposite problem where actually I need AI to tell me this is good enough. Like you're just
yeah,
posting something on LinkedIn. Like it doesn't really, no one's going to
yeah,
read, going to spend that much time reading it. Like it's good enough. Um, and so I sort of retuned it for less about slowness and rigor and more about compensating for my own bias, because I think I would stall myself in getting something live without that. Um, but it
Did it
does
help?
require,
Did
yeah,
that
oh yeah,
tweak like help your yeah?
yeah. I generally have it. It's I mean, it's kind of been interesting going through this now, where I use AI to help push back on the ideas that I'm thinking about, or like sharpen my thinking or challenge some of the thinking. I'll generally
Mm,
try to not have it write very much, but it's more just an editor giving me feedback.
yeah.
But then if I give it like 3 iterations or 4 iterations, after that it will just stop giving me feedback and just say you should post this now. Like it's good. It's good
Oh,
enough.
that's good. Yeah, that's handy.
um, so I guess it's those kind of personality quirks that I think do require a bit of self-awareness, or at least
Yeah, I see what you mean.
at least a sort of clear goal in what I'm trying to get done.
You have to
Um,
understand why the thing you want to do isn't happening in a fairly
yeah,
crisp way.
yeah, and I think maybe that comes down to the more you understand your own way of operating, the better you can prompt AI to help get you to either expose your blind spot or help accelerate you or amplify in what you're doing.
Yeah,
Um, and I guess yeah, writing publicly is one specific use case. It might not be relevant to all designers, probably isn't relevant to all designers, but it is this sort of self-contained thing where you can really have AI push against different angles based on your own
yeah,
insecurities or weaknesses, or just profile your own shape.
yeah,
And so for me, I found that quite helpful, at meaning that the AI is less about, it's a little bit of judgment, but less judgmenty, and I'm bringing a lot of the judgment, but it's helping me sort of lighten that expectation a bit on myself, which has been really
yeah,
useful.
yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, you just said that these skills are very personal and it's about knowing yourself. But even so, I think it'd be kind of interesting to see to put that somewhere and see if it's more broadly applicable, like a writing assistant that isn't just producing slop. Because I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't want AI to write for me because the output is going to be poor. But actually, what I would love is to just have something to get me in the flow and get me feeling confident to do it myself on
Yeah,
some level.
yeah,
So an AI editor rather than an AI writer, I think, is pretty compelling. I'd use it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think there's well, thank you. I think there's another angle of this, which is around just how you process things, like I don't know. I feel like I need to talk things through. I mean, that's partly why to an extent, why we started this podcast, to
Mm,
have more of an excuse to talk things through together. But I find that really important, to just processing information and getting clearer in my thinking.
yeah,
So perhaps that's another angle of this, of how you how you knowing how you reach that clarity is an important thing to bake into how you operate, and then find ways for AI to leverage that, to sort of build on that, but not replace it. And I guess that all comes back around to the craft point you were saying at the start, which is, how do you use AI as this mirror or this amplifier throughout your creative process to make sure it is amplifying the things that extend your thinking or extend your capacity,
yeah.
or counterbalance and push back, based on what you uniquely want to get out of it.
Yeah, and fundamentally not remove the things that you love about the work. And
Absolutely.
there'll be some things that people love that will be automated away, unfortunately, over the next however many months and years because of this technology. But I think there's plenty that doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be plenty of opportunities to spend more time doing the things you love by making everything else more efficient around
Yeah.
the edges of it. I think we are doing extraordinary amounts of low leverage work as a society still that is a great opportunity that this is a utopian but would help make space for more fun stuff that still is worth paying humans for. So that's my optimism showing. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
yeah, no, absolutely. I think if there's one thing we're able to help with, or for in teams who care about craft, that one thing might be taking a lot of that low leverage work off people's plates, so they can spend more time focusing on craft.
yeah,
Doesn't necessarily mean AI has to focus on the craft, but there's potential opportunities for that too.
yeah, for sure. Right, let's move on. I've realised
Yeah,
I've been showing this slide for ages, but we were talking around it for a long time, so I think that's okay. So
right.
what's next on the docket, Tom?
So I would love to ask you a bit more about Ooda. So you mentioned, and we talked about in that demo on Friday, the last step of our demo was getting the design tool that we built with the audience live on the internet. And that worked incredibly smoothly. And that was thanks to the tool
Mm.
that you had built, Ooda. So could you tell us a little bit more about that, and have you been thinking about it this week?
Yeah, I think Ooda had quite a big week last week because of two things that happened. Well, no, I think it was just one thing that happened. Was at the end of the week before. I've been building this tool, or like playing around with it and trying to work out if it's interesting, for a couple of months. And the original idea was around this concept of local host is hard for non-technical people and risky. Like, I want to run my coding agents with no permissions prompts because it's annoying and I never read them anyway and I don't know what they mean. So I'm just going to turn permissions off. But then, it could delete my file system, and I need to get all of these secret keys and API keys and passwords and things from an engineer, and then I need to ask them how to help me set it up. And I've got to run all sorts of commands that look scary. And then after all of that, I've got loads of company IP sitting on my laptop, and I don't know if I'm adding enough value to really need it there. And so the original idea was like, everyone should just be able to code in the cloud. Like, localhost will look silly in a few months' time, in a few years' time. So, and everyone will be in their cloud sandboxes. So I should build those sandboxes, but specifically for non-technical people. So that was the original idea, and I actually got the technology working pretty smoothly, and I really enjoyed. And to this whole what is a designer and what do we design when it's for agents thing, I designed a CLI and loads of non-UI sort of design work. I had a lot of fun learning about how to think through that, and it ultimately ended up with a piece of technology that worked, and I felt pretty good at and about, but a bit of a black box. And I sort of didn't feel that confident that I could describe why someone should care. And then a week or two ago, I sort of realized that the thing that really mattered probably was getting the finished thing, live somewhere for someone else to look at. We have all of these knowledge management platforms for documents and the rest of our work. And then I was talking to a scaled design team who said, they tried out Claude Code, but they didn't have anywhere to put the things they built. So they went back to Figma Make because they've sort of solved that. Figma have solved the sharing the link problem. And I just thought, sharing the link problem isn't a big problem. It doesn't feel like, frontier technology. It feels solved. It just so happens that Figma bothered to do it, and it's where the design work's already happening. So, so I thought, actually, I've actually built it already, all of the stuff required to solve that, but it's just a sort of side project within Ooda. And so I just flipped the sort of narrative in my own head. I was like, oh, well, how about I tell the story of Ooda being, instead of run your dev server in the cloud, which is what it was, instead just publish stuff to the cloud, but it's not public. It's only for inside your organization. Really easy. So I changed the H1 to, in fact, I could probably pull it up. I changed 3 words in the on the website from don't let your dev environments fly away or something to don't let your team's websites fly away. And I changed a few bits lower down the page, like publish in seconds, sites are secure by default was sort of a new section to really land the idea of prototypes, tools, and documents. So just really try and sort of be really simple on the proposition. And I shared it with 2 or 3 people last week, and every single person was like, oh yeah, I'm trying to solve this at the moment. And just one of those, I've been a founder before, and you sort of know it when you hear it, people going, I at least get this. They might not all be customers, but they understand what the problem is immediately, and they want to talk to you about it a little bit more, or they have a take on it, or they have here's the nuance for their organization. And so one person booked in straight away for a call to see if they could get access. Another person listed out a ton of use cases and was like, how many of these can you solve? And probably about half of them at the moment, but no reason why I couldn't solve more of them. So I was like, okay, well, now I feel excited about this again, having been not sure what to do with it for a couple of months. And then I thought, oh, the perfect way to force myself to get it working is to use it in our 15-minute tool creation workshop. And so I spent a couple of hours on Friday just making sure it worked really well. So now basically all you need to do is, after you've logged into Ooda, because it's only for Teams, so you have to have an Ooda account, all you do is ask Claude to publish this site on Ooda, and it knows exactly what to do. And within about a minute, probably 30 seconds, you'll have your full website, prototype, whatever it is, live on a link that is only accessible to people who are within your Ooda organization. So, it's a login by default. You have to log in to see it, which just sort of solves a little pain point that I think is interesting, and I'm not sure many other people are doing. So, really early days, and right now I'm just sort of excited about what it could be. I think the most interesting thing for this conversation, though, is that almost none of it has been designing a UI. Like, the UI looks pretty awful. Claude has done most of it. To get the whole thing working and to prove the value of it, almost all of the value is felt in terminal, because it's once you've created your account and logged in once, you sort of never have to go back to it. You ask it to give you a link, it gives you a link back in terminal, you share it. You can change sharing settings and do everything else from terminal, aka via your agent. You just ask your agent to do it. So it's like a UI-less platform, basically. The UI is only for managing other team members and things, really, at the moment. So it's a very, like, a product of, I suppose, a product of 2026, and how we're
Yeah.
doing things. But yeah, so that it's been fun to play with. I'm excited to see where it goes. Don't know how to charge for it or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know what the plan is, but we'll see what happens from here.
Super cool. Hearing you talk about it like that makes me, I don't know about this reference, but it reminds me of the early days of Dropbox, where it was just like a folder on your computer and you just like, oh, I want to share this file with somebody, so I'll just drop it into this folder, and then
Yeah,
making the journey, the round trip to share something as short as possible,
yeah,
and independent of an existing tech stack that someone's a part of, but with like really secure permissions. So I think
yeah.
that is like a really,
The sort
really
of
valuable.
invisibility of it is the thing that excites me the most. Yesterday, I was working on it, actually, and Claude wrote me a big plan for a piece of a feature that I was thinking about building, and I was like, I don't want to read this inside terminal. It's so hard to read. So I was like, I'll just put it on Ooda, and send me the link. And I read it in a nice HTML page, and the fact that A, that was very quick to do, and B, it sort of means that that websites are ephemeral now. You don't need to, like, create a new site on Netlify and, like, click a billion things, or or Vercel, or all of this kind of stuff. It just feels so simple to do that it's that, again, the tools, the symbiotic relationship between a person and their tools. Like, because I have that tool now, I might do things in a different way, which may lead to other consequences and interesting thoughts and ways of doing things. So yeah, I think it sort of all comes back to that. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I'll probably talk about it more on future episodes. So
Thanks for sharing.
it's a pleasure.
I know we're coming up on our time, but I wanted to share one fun thing about over the weekend, and I'd love to hear anything else fun that you want to share too, Jonny. But
No, I
after
want to hear this. You haven't told me about this yet, intentionally, so I'm excited.
so on Friday, so my 5-year-old son Wolsey was home from school on Thursday and Friday because he was sick. Um, and so I was looking after him for a bit, and we were talking about what I was going to be doing on Friday night. And I told him I'd be building this tool with a group of people, and that we could maybe do a test run together, like a practice run. And I told him that we'd be building a calculator. And he's 5, so I was asking him, "Do you know what a calculator is?" "Yeah, have you encountered one?" And he knows basic arithmetic, but I don't think he's ever used a calculator before. Uh, anyway, he claimed that he knew what a calculator was, but the thing I forgot about was I was about to leave on Friday, and he was a bit poorly, so he was not maybe his usual self during the day. But just as I was about to leave, he said, "Oh, but Daddy, you said you were going to build a calculator with me, and we haven't done it yet." And so I felt really
Oh.
guilty leaving on Friday night going to this event. And then one of the talks there, one of the speakers was talking about her 7-year-old daughter and how they have been playing with AI together and what that has taught her daughter about these amazing new tools that are what they're capable of. It was a very inspiring talk, and it was focused on finding moments of play and imagination throughout the weekend. And so that directly led me to thinking, oh, I need to make sure I do this over the weekend. So on Saturday, I sat down with Lottie and we built a calculator together on my laptop. I was a bit nervous about how will he understand like AI on my laptop? Like he doesn't. I don't know if he has a really good foundation of what software even is to begin with. So it's kind of interesting
Mm.
viewing it through his eyes of will he just assume this is how calculators are built generally, or will he know that there's something different about how this is coming together? So we built the calculator. It was cool. He got a lot of enjoyment out of just doing 5 + 5 = 10, and he's like, I know that. That's great. But then we started adding features, and that's where it got kind of fun and cute and interesting. And I asked him what feature he wanted to add, and he said he wanted to add a car. So we first added a car button. We added it to the calculator, and then what did it do? The car drove across the screen. It was like an emoji car, and then his eyes lit up. He was really excited about this car button and what it could do. But it didn't do any maths. So we were talking about like, what could it do? And he said, oh, it should multiply by 100. So we actually held down the voice button, and he spoke. He gave the feature request to Claude, and Claude added the multiply by 100 when you press the car button. And then we added a horse button, and I think his brother came over at that point and was asking like, he's just learning to talk. I think he just said horse. So we added a horse button. Walty was loving that. And then the final thing, I was like, okay, well, we've got a few good features here. But Walty's really interested in Lego at the moment. He's really obsessed with the Lego. So then I gave this complex request of now imagine the calculator as a Lego board. I want you to remove all the numbers and operators and everything. And then in order to make a calculation, you have to put the Lego pieces together on the board, and then it can do your calculation. So it took 5 minutes for Claude to do that. It was pretty complex. But then Monty was just going through the process of not even using it as a calculator, but he was just so fascinated with like, oh, there are these Lego pieces on the screen, and we just turned up in this calculator, and he was like, I just want to line up all the numbers so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it was incredibly cute and heartwarming. But also at the same time, I was wondering, like, going through my mind, like how is he conceptualizing all of this? And
Yeah.
he doesn't have like a huge amount of screen time generally, and so his base knowledge of how to use these tools is, I imagine, quite minimal. But
Yeah.
just sort of fascinating to think about someone who is growing up today, like, and they will grow up. They'll be teenagers. They'll be adults when this technology is much more mature, and like
Mm.
how the scene we're setting today, how that informs how they think about this stuff. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of wild to think about like how AI will be at that stage. But for now, it's extremely cute, in a way that feels inspiring and exciting and magical. I just need to make sure that I don't create some kind of addict in wanting
Yeah.
to play with AI tools constantly. But it's been, yeah, fascinating to play it with him and just to see what's going through his mind as he's sort of processing what he's seeing on the screen and how he's interacting with it. So
It's
yeah, a
awesome.
fun,
E-
yeah.
Extremely cute. And yeah, you do sort of think, well, how much should we be encouraging kids to be using AI at the moment, especially young ones? But at the same time, it's going to be inevitable for them. Like, it's going to be everywhere. So maybe it's better to know about it. And it also made me think, are we due like a touch screen 2.0 but times 10, where, you know, Joe, my 4-year-old, will like poke the telly and not really understand why that's not a touchscreen, because he's much more used to a touchscreen than a non-touchscreen, or at least that's what he sees, sort of the direct manipulation happening. And he's like, that makes more sense to me than having to use a controller. Like, why would I do that? And so, you know, the next thing they're gonna grow up with is direct manipulation of UI, maybe, or direct manipulation of the information they get at any point in time that completely changes. So might then get frustrated by like having to find a button in a menu to do something rather than just shout at the thing.
Yeah.
Like what are the new interactions that become so normal that
Yeah.
it seems crazy that you would ever have done anything else?
Yeah, so true. So true. And Walter had very similar instincts when we were looking at things on the laptop screen. He first went to touch the calculator, and then he remembered he needed to touch the keyboard. And then he
Yeah,
was struggling. It took him a really long time to move the mouse to the right place.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's introducing this technology. And this is definitely not a parenting podcast for anyone who's listening and wondering about what I'm about to say next. But I do think there's a difference between technology as a pacifier, like putting someone in front, a kid in front of a screen, versus using it as a way to like engage directly with them and learn something together or explore something together.
yeah,
And for me, that felt like a good use of that this moment to try and like explore what technology makes possible in that instance.
sure.
Also reminded me actually of a fun fact I've never told you, Jonny, or anyone who's listening to this. But when I was a kid, so my dad was a software engineer, and when I was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, I remember him, like us writing a computer program together with a BBC Basic computer, and it
Amazing.
allowed you to type in letters, and it translated them to this different code, so we could like write secret messages. And yeah, we wrote it in code together, and it was kind of a formative experience. But also looking back now, it's quite a sort of nostalgic bonding experience with my dad,
I bet.
and kind of cool that was possible at that time. And so now I'm wondering about the equivalent of that in the AI era. Like, is that
Yeah,
something, like, obviously not needing to teach kids to code anymore because of of AI, but what's the equivalent of that? And maybe it is a version of building your own tools or building your own personalized software to help with specific homework or specific thing
completely.
you're looking to tackle.
I feel like that experience for you is about creativity and creating something new and magical. And that feeling of magical is not going anywhere, I'm sure. It just might be that the way you do it is different.
True.
Yeah.
So true.
Right. On that, I think we should wrap episode 3 in the can. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you,
We
Jonny.
will get back to it next week, I suppose.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, if you've been listening to this, and thank you, Jonny. This has been fun. As always, excited for this week. See you soon.
Bye.